Now it feels like there's space to be authentic, there's space to be raw and real, because we all know that it's a whole new era of how work is going to get done, and it's going to be messy and it's going to be a little awkward, and that's okay. If we trust in each other and we help lift each other, we can start to create the world that we actually want to live in.
Hi, I'm your host, Larry Guthrie, Director of Content Strategy with the Society of Women Engineers. Welcome to Diverse, a SWE podcast. We're coming to you live from the WE25 Diverse Podcast Studio, on-site here at SWE's annual conference in New Orleans. It has been an amazing time, and I'm excited to this will be the second time I get to interview our guest today. She spoke earlier in one of our Inspirational Insights sessions, and she is here on the podcast today to talk about AI, artificial intelligence. It's been generating a lot of buzz these days. While it's widely used globally, there's an important conversation to be had on how to use it responsibly and ethically. To elaborate on that, I'm joined by Lisa Thie, CEO and co-founder of MinerGuard, an AI software company dedicated to online safety. Lisa is a TEDx speaker, one of Women in AI Ethics 2022 Top 100 Brilliant Women in AI Ethics, and has been on Thinkers 360 Top 50 Global Thought Leaders list since 2017. As I mentioned, here at WE25, she presented Inspirational Insights on responsible AI and was gracious enough to actually sign some copies of her latest book at our Author's Corner. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you so much for sharing so much of yourself here at the conference.
Larry, it's been such a pleasure collaborating with you on this.
Yes, it's like an old friend now at this point, right?
It does feel that way. Sometimes you just meet somebody and it clicks, and you can feel it authentically.
So this will be a fun conversation. And
I think so.
I heard so much yesterday around AI, and I'm excited to kind of share that with everyone here. But I wanted to start first a little bit about yourself and your background. What first drew you to the world of AI, and how did you come to focus on responsible AI and specifically?
Okay. So I had a pretty traditional start to my career. When I came out of engineering school from the University of Michigan, I moved across the country to try out Silicon Valley, which was a big deviation from where I grew up in Detroit. So most of my experience had only been in the auto industry. And in fact, I was a mechanical engineer for my first 4 years of school, but I finished in industrial engineering with an extra semester tacked on. So going into hardware manufacturing in Silicon Valley at Intel, and coming up through the ranks over the years in places like Rockwell Automation and some of those places, what I was able to experience is a wide range of types of work in corporate America. And it really was something that I thought I would stay in for the rest of my career. I was an accidental entrepreneur, but AI was actually the thing that led me to that. And the reason that happened was in selling technology for my day job, I learned about some really cool applications of AI that were saving people's lives in healthcare, specifically around unique cancer treatments, using people's genome to be able to determine the right approach to keeping them having the best outcomes. And at the time, this was back in 2015, so the idea of using your genes for personalized medicine was very novel and new to me, at least. I don't think it was widely known to the general public.
No, not at all.
And so I learned more about the case study because I had to sell the technology underneath it. And when I saw how that was applied, it opened up my mind to curiosity. I had just recently watched a documentary about the problem of human trafficking in America. And it really dawned on me as a parent myself, seeing this desperate mother looking for her daughter, who the police didn't really want to help her find again because she was a repeat runaway. And I thought to myself, my goodness, this poor single mother is doing everything she can to protect her child from a neighborhood that has some real risks in it. And she has to beg a human to do their job to help her. And I thought, this could be a place where AI could step in and make it so that everybody who's missing their child and looking for them could have help finding them. Why aren't we applying the tech to things like this? And so it aligned with my personal vision of bringing influential leaders and innovation together to address social justice problems at scale. And that's always been a passion of mine. And AI just seemed like that turning point now where when we democratize it, we can really remove barriers for a lot of people that have been marginalized. They haven't had access, and it can be an opportunity to grow wealth, to grow influence, and to make the invisible visible through data.
Yeah, and I think it's worth punctuating. What year are we talking about when this was happening?
Yeah, this was all happening in 2015, so about a decade ago. And it was one of those things where I had taken an 8-year break from working in high tech. So when I went back to working at Intel at the time doing business development for their memory group, I literally had to go look up, like, what's the cloud? All of these things that had happened since I had stepped away and was working more in the manufacturing base where the technology stack was a little bit different. And so it was just as much of an adventure for me as it is for everybody now. I literally didn't even know how to spell AI, and it's only 2 letters, so it's pretty pathetic. And for the first year that I was working on projects in this space, once we decided to do a proof of concept to see if there's something meaningful we could do, I found myself in a lot of rooms with data scientists and principal engineers from the company that are all speaking in this jargon that I didn't even understand. And, you know, I have an engineering degree, and I speak English, and they were speaking English, allegedly, but I truly could not even follow all the things they were trying to explain for at least 6 months. And so it became really clear to me that it's important that we make this accessible to people, because it doesn't need to be this big mysterious thing. And it's just a tool, it's not a solution. And so it's important that people understand they have a role in applying it in a way that will benefit society, not just benefit the bottom line.
And I love that you not only came up to speed very quickly in 2015, you came up to speed and then did like a quantum leap, because to do AI in 2015, you were way ahead of the curve.
It is one of the benefits of working in the tech sector is you get access to information a lot sooner than most people do. And so, yeah, I mean, I remember being in a closed room on Google's campus with all the leaders in trust and safety across the industry in 2016. And, you know, we fit in one conference room. And so to see where we are today, I mean, it just blows my mind. I'll never forget the opportunities that I had because I got passionate about applying tech to a certain issue. And I think that's what I was trying to express in my speech yesterday is when you get really clear who you are, what your values are, and why you wake up in the morning, and it's beyond a paycheck, I think you can really start to collect the best tribe you'll ever have around you of people that are like-minded and passionate. And it was so cool to see data scientists from Microsoft and Google and Meta and Palantir all coming together to address digital crimes against children on their platforms, and competitors become collaborators, and, you know, criminals don't follow the rules, so they go ahead and make problems on everybody's platform. So when we come together, it's really cool to see the greatest thinkers, the biggest minds, and, you know, they're literally like drawing out like the architecture of Google Brain on one side of the whiteboard, and, you know, how Microsoft's architecting on the other side. And I'm just sitting in here going, I hope they don't ask me any questions, because I don't think I can add any value to this conversation. But what an honor to see these brilliant technologists choosing to do work that can be tough on the soul, looking at some of the hardest corners of the internet and making that sacrifice for other people's families, other people's children, other people's sisters, brothers. And it just made me feel this level of inclusion in tech in a way that I never authentically felt before that time.
Yeah, it connected, like you said, it connected with your values. What was in your heart?
Yeah, I mean, the first 15 years of my career, I feel like it was about making a paycheck and like earning respect as an engineer.
Sure.
And now it feels like there's space to be authentic, there's space to be raw and real, because we all know that it's a whole new era of how work is going to get done, and it's going to be messy, and it's going to be a little awkward, and that's okay. If we trust in each other and we help lift each other, we can start to create the world that we actually want to live in when this big grand experiment is all implemented.
And I love that you're bringing to light, you know, AI gets all different types of raps in the media, right? And I love that your focus is the good that it's doing. Speaking of, you know, AI for social good, and you shared a couple examples, and of course you talked more in your TEDx talk, using AI to combat human trafficking. One, would love to know a little bit more about what that solution looked like. And then also, are there other AI for social good that you're seeing out there that you're really excited about?
Great question. So I'll answer the first part first. In the areas of what we did with that work, back in 2017, we partnered with AWS and Thorn alongside Microsoft and Intel. And we looked at how can we integrate facial recognition into tools that detectives use to recover known human trafficking victims. And why do we know they were known human trafficking victims? Because these were children that had been reported to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children that were currently missing, and these detectives were looking at escort ads online to try to find if those children were being sold by traffickers. And so the technology at the time was trained on primarily male, white, middle-aged men's faces because that was the labeled data that's available.
Yes.
And we needed it to perform at the same level of fidelity using the AI technology for diverse female teenage faces primarily. It didn't work so well. There was a lot of false positives, and we were at an accuracy level of 70%. No detective is going to bother using a tool when it's got that much junk in, junk out effect, right? So one of our data scientists came up with the idea of applying a more, at the time, more modern deep learning tech to the problem. And with that approach, we were able to do something called a nearest neighbor search. What that means is instead of trying to find an exact match, you're going to reorder the image you're looking for with putting in order all the images that you're sorting through with the likelihood of the match being at the top. So instead of trying to find perfect, we were finding good enough. And every time that we did that, what we learned was that usually the right answer was within the first line of the images. So we built a tool, a simple game actually, to help people recognize the power of that, because in job shadowing the detectives, our user experience folks learned that they spend a lot of time scrolling through internet searches, searching for faces and people. And through using this technology into a tool that Thorn makes available called Spotlight for detectives across the country, we were able to get the accuracy level up to 99% using deep learning. And as a result of that, the first year it went into implementation, they recovered 130 known missing children that first month alone.
That's fantastic.
And so that allows these detectives to make sure that they're addressing the challenges of some of the more prolific criminals that are recruiting mostly victims from our foster care system and families that have contact with social services, and getting those people that are preying on these youth off the streets and having a broader impact.
And it sounds like it also enables them to do that work much faster.
Absolutely. When we did that game, what we had people do was like 3 different levels. So the first level, you were looking through 50 images of known child celebrities, nothing inappropriate, and trying to find a match between, image 1 and image 2. We did that for the second round with 100 images, and then the third round was 1,000 images. So you could see exactly how long it took you to find the match for each level, and then we'd have you reset it with the AI doing the AI assist, and then you could see your time for picking it when the image is right at the top of the screen, and people could see literally the time that they saved doing the exact same task, and it really opened people's eyes to the art of the possible. And it's what allowed us to fundraise over $4 million within the company to modernize the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children's data center and be able to recover these children and put this into a full production mode.
That's the kind of work that just makes me feel so good to hear, right? And to know that there's people like you dedicated to it and that you're able to bring on bigger companies to kind of join you in this. You started small movement, but then brought everybody with you, right?
Yeah, it was a lot of no's before it was any yeses. I'm not going to paint a rosier picture than it was. It took us about 18 months to get buy-in and fundraise and get that all going. But what I can tell you is I feel like it created so much benefit to Intel itself because our employees were so passionate about the work. It re-energized their commitment to the company. It's something they were so proud of. The CEO of Intel at the time did the closing keynote of Open Summit in 2017 on our project. And it was just something that I think fills our spirit as problem solvers, as engineers, that there's a why behind it, that something more than just, making clickbait more effectively. the tool itself is like saying, giving somebody a laptop and saying, write the next great American novel. If they're prolific writers, maybe you'll get that output, but if they're not, you're probably just going to get a nice Word document like the average people can make, including myself. And so, AI is just a platform. It's just a tool. It's not good or bad. But when the incentives of the company are not in alignment with harmony of humans, that's when things go really, really wrong. And I think a lot of the reason that's happening is because it's kind of a black box to most people. They don't really understand it, and they don't really know how to hold people accountable to using it responsibly.
Sure. So I guess the next step logical question, it sounds to me, is like, what are those practical steps for companies, individuals, any users of AI to make sure that they're applying the AI ethically and responsibly?
Yeah, I think I'll give a couple, maybe a top 3 tips of what I do, because it's such a broad topic. It depends on how you apply it. So in general, I think for the average person that's trying to work with this technology, there's a few key things. Tip number 1 is simple, but the most important, which is if you're not paying for the tool that you're using, you're probably the product. And so as you're working with some of these free solutions out there, it's really important to recognize you don't want to put any personally identifiable information in there. You certainly don't want to put any trade secrets of your company into those tools. And you want to be mindful that the tools are learning a lot about you, just like what we've seen in social media and some of the outputs of that. Tip number 2 is that you never want to bring in tools into the workplace that are not already approved by your organization. Sure. You don't want the buck to stop with you because you made a decision that's outside of the standards and the norms. So be mindful of being aware of the policies of what your company is using and why. And then last but not least, I really encourage people to start using it in their personal lives just to get accustomed to it. I don't think we're going to get to the place where everybody needs to know how to code AI. I just still don't know how to code AI, and I've been a founder of a software startup in this space. It's just like the iPhone, right? My kids could use an iPhone at 3 years old because it's designed to be user-friendly. I think we're going to get to that place with AI, and it's really more about recognizing what are the ethics of the company that's building the tools. Are they sourcing their data responsibly? Do they have a policy on ethics that they make public? Are they working with foreign national governments that could be a threat to national security? Those are the kind of things to consider. It's really more kind of the stepping out of any kind of vendor that you use. Are they credible? Are they somebody that you believe is going to be a good steward of your information? I think those are the 3 things that the general public can apply.
That's great advice. But you bring up a good point around the data sources, and certainly the data sources, there's some bias. Right. There
can be bias. It can also be, junk in, junk out. Just like traditional programming, if your data's not clean, your output's going to be messy at best as well.
Are there some best practices around how do you address the bias when you're bringing in AI?
Yeah, I think it's important to recognize where the bias is coming from, first and foremost. So you can have bias in your data, you can have bias in your algorithm, or you can have bias in the user that's using the algorithm. So there's a lot of points of failure, so you might apply it differently. But I think at a general level, it's a pretty simple solution, which is you achieve what you measure in an organization. So if you're looking for fairness, you better have a metrics on fairness that you're going back and validating your model output against. Or if you're concerned about transparency and explainability, are you at least letting people know the limits of where we are with the technology today and what we can and can't know? Because even the best experts can't exactly tell you how the computer is ingesting all of this information and learning from it. It's not traditional programming, like where we set every step of it going forward. With that, those are 2 things that come to mind in that space. Until humans are out of the loop in AI, which will never probably be the case fully. You still have to have somebody to build the models and do the ingestion and train the models, and then you have to continue feeding them data and feedback for model drift, because they will, even the best built model, if it doesn't get consistent flows of data, will start to give bad results. So it's just important for people to recognize that humans are touching it, humans are labeling the data, humans are feeding the data into these models. So until humans don't have any bias, you're going to see bias show up in models. But the best way to deal with that is more data, more data, because it can learn from different types of examples, and it's just making sure that you have enough information for it to see all the different possibilities of how things could have played out, because it's mostly just pattern recognition at the end of the day.
Gotcha. Well, hopefully we're making an impact here at SWE to kind of be putting out that type of balanced, diverse data to kind of contribute to the algorithms and what AI is pulling.
It's actually the most important, and why I'm so passionate about getting more women stepping into the C-suite in this big transformation that we're seeing with AI. There is so much opportunity for subject matter experts, whether that be by industry or by field. Maybe, you're a supply chain expert or a marketing expert or whatever that may look like for you, to be able to look at places where you have repetitive, tedious tasks, like the example of what I explained the detectives have to go through, embedded in your workflow, and all you're wishing is you could get some of that off your plate. So I like to think of those places where you might want to hire an assistant to take care of it for you. Why not hire an AI agent to be the one that does that for you? And why not build a company out and be able to sell that to other people as well, if you're already solving for those challenges? It's going to be the last mile problems that are going to help everybody else build wealth and companies in this space. And I would rather see a million millionaires out there now than the billionaire model that we've seen in entrepreneurship up till now.
Yeah, absolutely. With this kind of especially right now, we're talking AI, you couldn't have picked a better time to talk about this, right? There's this huge explosion. Everybody's trying to keep up with it, right? And you had mentioned earlier that 18 months to get funded, especially for something that has that social good component.
Yeah, that was definitely, as an entrepreneur, we were trying to sell ice to Eskimos. Sure. Trying to find all the ways that we could tie it back to the bottom line benefit of the company through the stated goals in the annual report, and getting executive sponsors that wanted to put their name on it and use it as a case study. It was a really long journey, and it's actually part of what motivated me to write the book, Go Reboot Your Career in 90 Days, because I wanted to document that, because I think we did something pretty special that doesn't happen very often.
Absolutely.
And there were some really senior executives that put their time and energy into coaching me up to be able to lead something like this. And I wanted to make sure to capture their wisdom and then my own learned experience of stepping into entrepreneurship as a woman in my 40s who has disabilities and being able to successfully thrive in this space. I want people to see that there's not going to be one thing that says you're ruled out. I didn't grow up in Silicon Valley. I don't have a software background before running my software company.
Sure.
And when you build a team that can be really cohesive around a topic like that, finding your tribe mentality. My co-founder was from Apple. He had led a team of 130 global developers, finding fraud in manufacturing using AI for Apple internally. He had all the expertise on the development side. I had all the expertise on the sales side, the marketing side, telling the story and being able to fundraise for the company. And so together, it was the sum of the parts was greater than our individual contributions.
Sure.
And I just encourage people to stop ruling themselves out before they try. Mm-hmm. And I think the best lessons that I've gotten as I've kind of entered this more kind of wise elder of tech era of my life as I'm creeping on 50, I coach a lot of CEOs, some men, some women, all different ages. And what I find is every single one of them feels imposter syndrome. Every single one of them feels like, whew, once the buck stops with you as the business owner, like everybody has their strengths and weaknesses they're going to play to. And so I would just rather see more types of people stepping into those roles, because there's never going to be a perfect time. There's never going to be a perfect way. But I think when we have people that have different lived experiences, we're not going to tolerate as much bias. We're not going to tolerate as much unintended consequence in the product design and the services design going forward.
Yes, that's the hope, right?
Yes.
With that, I'm going to circle back on a question earlier. AI, social good, are there things on the horizon that you've heard of that you're really excited about, or is there a direction that you're hoping it goes in that hasn't gone yet?
Well, I struggle to answer that. Where my brain goes that I'd like to take us is actually just a different approach to the same question, which is I have had the chance to host the main stage of the World AI Festival in Cannes the past few years, and what I've seen from being in more of a global setting and AI with some of the, the leaders of this space, Meta Research puts it on, so you get a pretty good crowd there.
And a few people.
Yeah. Talk about imposter syndrome. I'm sitting there going, how do I get on this stage? Don't tell anybody I don't belong here. But with that said, what I see is a lot of the sentiment from the Eastern countries, China, India, those types of places, is this incredible enthusiasm for being able to improve the quality of lives of people, just from a day-to-day perspective. What I see in Europe and the Americas is this extreme fear of AI and how it's going to disrupt society and make it like a dystopian hellscape. And so I think the answer is somewhere in the middle, right? I don't think it's going to make utopia, and I don't think it's going to make a hellscape, but I do think that, if you're coming from a culture where privacy is not an expectation, where government has ultimate control, you can see how you'd see AI as beneficial, because you can be more effective in getting food distribution, medications, all the things that the government provides to their people done more effectively. Whereas in, the places where we live in the US and things like that, it's a fear of losing your autonomy, losing your freedom, losing your privacy. So I think the answer is somewhere in the middle, and it's going to constantly be negotiated, kind of like the balance between privacy and safety online. It's always going to be two sides of the same coin.
That makes sense. And thank you for sharing. I love hearing the global perspectives. I think it's really important. We're a global organization, and plus I'm just fascinated by how the same problem or the same technology, whatever it is, that there's so many different ways that people approach it and utilize it.
Yeah, and I host a web series called Navigating Abroad, and we interview entrepreneurs or senior leaders at that conference for the past few years. And some of the ways that people are applying it just blow my mind. I got the chance to meet an amazing female founder the first year I was there that was building tech to be basically the Bloomberg of environmental emissions. So she's using satellite technology to be able to identify the air quality in India where she lives, so that they can empower more citizens to be putting pressure on the government to regulate corporations to keep the air clean. And just like the power of making the invisible visible to the general public, and then being able to hold companies accountable for how they're polluting the air. Like how from satellite images from space, like mind blowing, right? The innovation that is going to come is so exciting.
Yes, stay tuned, right?
Yes,
more to come.
More to come. And why not you? If you have an idea of how we can rescue more shelter animals effectively, if you have a passion for addressing the loneliness epidemic in the world, if you care about senior care, whatever it is, like why not you? All innovation starts with trial and error, and we are all professional problem solvers in this community. So let's get on it.
And you inadvertently plugged a recent podcast of ours with a former Olympic athlete, and that is her mantra is, why not me?
Why not? I certainly would never have envisioned this outcome when I went to my first SWE conference as a recent college graduate 27 years ago. And, why not you? That's the beauty of convening. You can see so many examples of people that didn't think it would be them either.
I mean, and kudos to you for coming at 5 years old for your first conference.
I was just getting confidence in my ability to use a public bathroom. It was a good time for me. Confidence building.
I mean, it's worth mentioning because we talked about this as well, and I think it's such a powerful, you have been such a long time SWE member and supporter, but you mentioned how your career moves have always been associated with SWE events.
A national conference, in fact, yeah. When I was looking at my options back in 2007 to make a career shift, I was doing a job in IT that I loved. I got to travel 100,000 miles a year. It was so cool. I was in my late 20s and single. It was the perfect time. Intel sent me to 36 countries in 2 years.
Wow.
It was a PhD in the world, and as somebody who probably, if I went back to school, would love to be an anthropologist. It was like the coolest experience I could possibly have. But it also was really difficult to maintain a relationship when you're gone all the time. And I was approaching those years where maybe I would want to focus on that if I wanted to have kids. And so I was looking for a sales job. I was looking for something local. I had been networking and a top performer at my company for years and years and years on the marketing side of things. I could not get anybody to give me a shot. Not one person, because to do sales, you have to have sales experience. And it's like this chicken and the egg thing, right?
Yep.
And so when I was at the SWE conference that year, I was working the Intel booth, but Rockwell Automation was right across on the career fair floor. And I spoke with somebody over there, and they connected me with a local person through their partner channel. And within a month, I had a job offer, and I got to step into sales. And that was what really started to accelerate me down my career path versus, kind of being on a ladder, being pushed up fast, but like not on the wrong building. I didn't want to be on that ladder, and it was SWE that helped me make the bridge to the right building. And then from there, I spent 15 years developing my sales skills and my leadership, and that's what allowed me to step into the C-suite and be able to fundraise and be able to actually be one of the people that can successfully have an exit in entrepreneurship.
I love that story. I mean, it's one of the main things that we hope people experience at this conference, right? This year we have about 13,000 people here, and the excitement and everything, and just knowing that there are stories just like yours happening every single year, it makes all the work and effort that we put into this so worth it.
I've got even one more for you if you'll humor me.
Of course.
So back in 2015, when I was Googling what the cloud was, I was really interested in going back to a tech job. At that point, my kids were older, and I could handle leaving them for a little bit longer time. And so I had been heavily recruited by IBM at the time, but I wanted to go back to Intel because I knew the terminology. I had already worked there 7 years. It's just a little easier to step into.
Yes.
Yeah. And I had applied for a job that looked ideal for me. And I was waiting and waiting and waiting and working my network, and I just couldn't get any traction through the HR system. And I came to the SWE conference. It was in LA that year, the national conference, and I saw the Intel booth there, and I saw an old friend of mine who lives in the same town as me. So it's pretty funny that we had to travel to a national conference to have a conversation we should have been able to have in the coffee shop. But what was so special about that interaction was she found out I had applied for that role, took my resume from the conference, handed it to the hiring manager the next day. I had an offer within 5 days for that job.
Wow.
And that was 4 levels up in the company from when I left 8 years before.
That's fantastic.
And so and the person who ended up bringing me back into Intel and hiring me said that I was the exact candidate she was looking for this role, and they had it open for almost half a year looking for someone. And I had applied for it as a high performer from the company with recommendations from the senior management team, and I still got lost in the mix. And it was the SWE conference that got me the job.
Yes. I mean, we can go down a rabbit hole of AI filtering applications and getting past that algorithm.
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
a whole other conversation.
But that's the power of the community that we convene here is, I know from working in diversity back in 2002 when nobody was working in it, when you were still allowed to say it, that, conferences like this, there are special job offers that are held aside for opportunities that are found, for candidates that are found at places like this. And, it's one of the best tips and tricks I tell people when I'm mentoring and coaching, especially early in your career, is, companies want to maintain their relationship with SWE. So even in the times that they're laying off, even in the times that they're downsizing, they will still hire new talent so that when the times flip and they can't get enough employees, SWE is there to help them find the talent that they need to grow. It's a reciprocal thing, and that will happen with other organizations,
Sure.
like for different affinities. But I don't think I really understood how the game was played until I got the chance to do that sabbatical coverage and realize that it might sound crazy to spend $1,000 to go travel to a national conference, but if you are yelling into the Grand Canyon and you can't get noticed for your next career opportunity, that was the best money I've ever spent in my life. I made it back on my, 15x on my signing bonus. It was nothing, right?
Yes. It's wonderful to hear because it's humbling, and we're so grateful that we get to play that kind of role. It's what we've kind of aspired to, and it's nice to know that we're considered that in certain circles.
It's working. I mean, when I started coming to these things, you guys were at a 50-year anniversary. Now we're at 75, and thank goodness for the power of community to help us navigate through.
Yes. And thank you for that shameless plug on 5075. So I think I should return the favor. This has been a fantastic conversation. I've loved everything about it. If you want to hear her actual talk, you can check her out on the Advanced Learning Center. There you can watch us on demand. It's free and open to all. And that's at advancedlearning.swe.org. And certainly check this out. Share this with friends. Check her book out as well. I'm sure that would be a wonderful accompaniment to this whole conversation, kind of complete that. Lisa, what can I say? This has been a pleasure. Two days in a row.
It's been a complete pleasure for me too. I actually wrote to my parents this morning saying, yesterday I got to do a speech and a book signing, and it was my first time back to work since I took a year off to caretake for my son who got very ill. And I wasn't sure if I was going to get a chance to step back in after, having that time, and it was necessary. He needed every bit of my attention to get back on his feet. I just felt like myself again, and it's just the third time that SWE has saved my career, so thank you.
I think we are just as thankful to be able to welcome you back with open arms.
Thank you. And for people that are interested in checking out my TED Talk, if you're interested in knowing how we can apply AI to disrupt human trafficking, you can go to my website at lisathea.com, just like with an extra E. And you can also check out my book and my podcast and all the things there.
All things Lisa.
Yes.
Everyone's got a little homework to do. So get to that. And with that, I'm Larry Guthrie, live at WE25. And from all of us at SWE, thanks for listening.